Welcome to Fun with RFCs, where I take some really dry technical writing and try to jazz it up to make it a more entertaining read. This RFC 1466 was inspired by the last video I did of RFC 1918, and I'm doing this new one 1466 because in 1918 it said that address registries are requiring more justification than ever before, making it harder for organizations to acquire additional address space. So I just wanted to know more about what they mean when they say address registries are requiring more justification. Like, what exactly is going into that justification that makes it so much harder for an organization to acquire this additional space. So this is pretty fascinating to me, just these networking concepts of how IP addresses are determined. So this one, 1466, is basically guidelines for management of IP space. Apparently written by E. Garrick of Meredith, so I don't know what that is. And it makes 1366 obsolete, and in this scenario I thought it was pretty cool because 1366 is exactly 100 higher than, or lower, than 1466. And a little bit more information over here about what the terms updates or obsoletes mean. It's used to define It used to be defined by RFC 2223, but now it is obsoleted by RFC 7322, which I just find sort of ironic. So you have an RFC about how RFCs are supposed to use these terms, updates and obsoletes. And I even did a little research and looked up this RFC 1366, but I did not see that term that said obsoleted by, which is fascinating to me because I thought after reading the answer here on Stack Overflow as to what the terms updates and obsoletes mean, I thought that if you did do something like this where it says obsoletes and then the number of the old RFC, on the old RFC it's supposed to say this. So I don't know if there's a consistency problem or if it's a simple mistake or if I'm just not understanding this process at all. But let's get into the reading of this one. I need to actually start crossing these out because I don't want to read them every single time I read one of these RFCs. And I also need to remember the shortcut for crossing things out. It's Control minus. So here's the abstract. This document has been reviewed by the Federal Engineering Planning Group on behalf of the Federal Networking Council, the co-chairs of the Intercontinental Engineering Planning Group, and the Rousseau IP Europeans, RIPE. There was general consensus by those groups to support the recommendations proposed in this document for management of the IP address space. Introduction. With the growth of the Internet and its increasing globalization, much thought has been given to the evolution of the network number allocation and assignment process. RFC 1174, Identifier Assignment and Connected Status, dated August 1990, recommends that the Internet Registry continues as the principal registry for network numbers. However, the IR may allocate blocks of network numbers and the assignment of those numbers to qualified organizations. The IR will serve as the default registry in cases where no delegated registration authority has been identified. And for me, the most well-known IR is IANA, or IANA. So the distribution of the registration function is desirable, and in keeping with that goal, it is necessary to develop a plan which manages the distribution of the network number space. The demand for network numbers has grown significantly within the last 2 years, and as a result, the allocation of network numbers must be approached in a more systematic fashion. And that's funny, it says in the last 2 years, because again, this document was written in 1993, so we're talking about 91 to 93. These guys are seeing a big demand for new network numbers. This document proposes a plan which will forward the implementation of RFC 1174 and which defines the allocation and assignment of the network number space. What a cool term, just network number space. There are 3 major topics to be addressed. The first one is guidelines for distributed regional registries, the allocation of the network number space by the Internet Registry, and assignment of the network numbers. And of these three, I just highlighted qualifications because that is an interesting question. What would qualify as needing an IP address? Because nowadays we know IoT is a very popular thing, and we have a lot of small devices that are, for all intents and purposes, on the internet. So what do you have to do in order to qualify? It looks like right here we'll get into that first one. Qualifications for distributed regional registries. So the major reason to distribute the registration function is that the internet serves a more diverse global population than it did in its inception. This means that registries which are located in distinct geographic areas may be better able to serve the local community in terms of language and local customs. While there appears to be wide support for the concept of distribution of the registrant function, it is important to define how the candidate delegated registries will be chosen and from which geographic areas. So I think that is just a really good paragraph. It shows that the author of this, let me highlight this and jump back and remind myself, the author, Garrick, though may be a very techie person, sure is aware of important things to be considerate of, such as language, and especially of local customs. So what a great idea, in my opinion. Based on the growth and maturity of the internet in Europe, North America, Central, South America, and the Pacific Rim areas, it is desirable to consider delegating the registration function to an organization in each of those geographic areas. Until an organization is identified in those regions, the IR will continue to serve as the default registry. The IR remains the root registry and continues to provide the registration function to all those regions not covered by distributed regional registries. And as other regions of the world become more and more active in the Internet assigned numbers authority, IANA, and the IR may choose to look for candidate registries to serve the population in those geographic regions. And I'd love to see some sort of infograph where they show how many servers exist in every single one of these geographic regions. And I wonder of these regions right here, which one has the most servers. I want to lean towards the Pacific Rim areas, maybe because of China. But if not them, then I would imagine North America may be in the lead. But that is a 100% guess on my part. It is important that the regional registry is unbiased and... Oh, is that a typo in an RFC? Usually I just copy and paste, so unless I did something funky, that's the first typo I've ever found. So anyways, it is important that the regional registry is unbiased and widely recognized by network providers and subscribers within the geographic region. It is also important that there is just a single regional registry per geographical region at this level to provide for efficient and fair sub-allocation of the address space. To be selected as a distributed regional registry, an organization should meet the following criteria. And before I read that criteria, let me just point out the great idea of a registry being unbiased. Great balance there. They're not looking for money. They're just providing a means for the internet to work. I have to say, at this time, I think I have a favorite RFC writer, this person, Garrick. I'm going to do some more research and report back to you guys on what I found. But what great ideas he or she is writing about. So the criteria. Networking authorities within the geographic area legitimize the organization. Okay, so that sounds like everybody agrees that the registry is their registry. The next one says the organization is well established and has legitimacy outside of the registry function. I have no idea what that could mean. And the organization will commit appropriate resources to provide stable, timely, and reliable service to the geographic region. And that's a very common sense kind of thing. But of course, when you document things or when you create contracts or you're just trying to be clear with somebody on what you're agreeing with, this is definitely something we would want to be clear on. The registry needs to be stable. These numbers need to be accepted in a timely and reliable fashion. Oh, and at the bottom of the page, it looks like they'll remind us of the author each time as well. Every time I read an RFC, I learn something new about just the structure of the RFC. My picture here is about political stability, but also we need stability in other areas of life as well, don't we? Okay, there's a D and an E in terms of criteria. So D says, is committed to allocate IP numbers according to the guidelines established by the IANA and the IR, and is committed to coordinate with the IR to establish qualifications and strategies for sub-allocations of the regional allocation. Okay, everybody, forgive me. I thought IANA was an example of an IR. I'll have to do a little more research, put this on my to-do list to try to clarify for everyone, but maybe IANA is just like the parent and the IRs are the child. Leave it to a programmer or programmatically minded person to be writing RFCs. The Distributed Regional Registry is empowered by the IANA and the IR to provide the network number registration function to a geographic area. It is possible for network applicants to contact the IR directly. Depending on the circumstances, the network subscriber may be referred to the regional registry, but the IR will be prepared to service any network subscriber if necessary. So after reading this paragraph, I have more questions in this RFC than the other one, and that's just part of this fun with RFCs. I'm going to ask a lot of questions I may never even find out the answer to, but just the act of asking questions is good for learning. So my question with this, the Distributed Regional Registry, is that the same thing as an ISP? Is it a fancy name for an ISP? Are ISPs also registries? And when I Googled this word, Distributed Regional Registry, the first hit I got was an IANA website. And so then it gives you a map of all these other IRs. So this is kind of confirming my prediction that IANA may be the parent and IRs are all childs. Or children, childs. But here is a pretty fancy, nice map, and this obviously correlates with what we were reading above in terms of geographic regions, such as North America, Central and South. We got the Pacific Rim, and then above it said Europe, though Europe is super large with the addition of Russia and Greenland. But I'm sure it's based on population, not landmass size. And then a better clarifying chart below where IANA looking like the parent, and here are all the children IR entities, and the Pacific Rim breaks out into even more. So, Section 3, Allocation of the Network Number Space by the Internet Registry. The Class A portion of the number space represents 50% of the total IP host addresses. Class B is 25% of the total, and Class C is approximately 12% of the total. Now this table right here shows the allocation of the IP network numbers. It says network number statistics, and this was taken in May 1992. Class A and B network numbers are a limited resource, and therefore allocation from this space will be restricted. The entire Class A number space will be retained by the IANA and the IR. No allocations from the Class A network numbers will be made to distributed regional registries at this time. And I wonder if I really should stop calling it IANA. I wonder if, like, in the community and the industry, people say IANA. I kind of want to say they do. From a lot of the podcasts I listen to, I feel like I've heard someone say IANA. So if you don't mind, I'm going to switch it up just to sound more professional.